Hello, Jake. It's so wonderful to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm feeling a lot better now that I'm here, honestly, Carolina.
I love to hear that. So,
Yeah.
Jake, can you tell us about to our listeners a little bit, like who are you? What do you do? What do you got going on?
Yeah. So I guess how people might identify me is with the three letters that are behind my name. I'm the CEO of Imiloa Institute here in Costa Rica, which is an intercontinental institute for the education and advancement of human beings. And what that basically means is we have retreats and educational experiences that are taught by people from various disciplines. And we're building one on every continent on the planet over the next 5 years. So it's like this intercontinental network of of institutes. In my private life, I enjoy Ashtanga yoga. So I'm an Ashtanga yoga practitioner, certainly not a teacher. I love living in Costa Rica. I do not enjoy cooking. So that's been very nice to have a five-star gourmet chef at Imiloa, I will tell you right now. I come from the state of Maine. I come from very humble background, a hardworking mill town, blue collar background, and I was originally in the entertainment business in my 20s. So that's a little bit about me.
That's a little bit. That's true. I'm obsessed with this retreat center. I need to get myself over there one day
Yeah,
and, maybe host retreats with your place one day. But I think it's so cool. Like I'm already hearing these themes of, there's this kind of normal childhood or, kind of place in life that you were into this really big awakening of really that kind of spiritual wellness side of you. And I kind of want to tease apart like how you went from there to where you are now. So
yeah,
can you tell me a little bit about the backstory of how you got into like wellness and spirituality and, how does being alcohol free, how did that kind of relate to your
totally.
transformation and journey?
I would not call it a normal childhood. I would call it a normal state in the 50 states. And my parents were normal. It was normal, except I had a lot of undealt with and really unrecognized trauma
Yeah.
as a kid. And, I watched my brother die when I was 17. He was 13. He was in my parents' arms. He had had leukemia for 2 years. And I experienced my parents. The trauma wasn't him dying necessarily, it was my parents' inability to host the emotions that I was having because they were in their own journey. And that had been a pattern in my life as a kid in terms of my experience with my parents. So at a very young age, I was taught it's not fully safe to feel what it is I feel, and to be who it is I was, which was an outgoing, gregarious, happy, joyous person. So I actually, when my brother was dying, I moved to France. He wasn't dying. He was cancer free at the time, but he was just about to relapse. I moved to France and I started drinking very early. I was like 15 when I started drinking in France because like we would all go to school from 8 to 5, and then if I could reach the bar, I could drink in France in 2001. So I started drinking a whole lot, and then I moved to New York City in the entertainment business. And, I started drinking a lot there too. And then before I know it, I was dancing on bars with the go-go dancers and not leaving the bar until 4 a.m. and then going to college at 7 and then doing my TV show in the afternoon because I had a late night talk show on ABC stations after Kimmel. This all continued until I was 21. And I remember there was a moment, and I can share with you if you want, but there was a moment where I stopped drinking and my whole life opened up.
Okay, you got to share the moment.
I don't know. I'm letting you guide the thing wherever you want to go, Carolina. So the moment it was at a premiere for my show at the Hotel Gansevoort in New York City. It was July 2007. Yeah, because I was 21, 22. And I was drunk as a skunk. I mean, I could have 4 Long Island iced teas, no problem. And like and I was 21, and it was for my show, and the press was there and all this. And then I had an after party, and it was really debaucherous. It was fun. It's what people classify as fun in their early 20s, I guess. Now I can't even imagine. And I remember going home. I lived in Astoria, Queens at the time, and I went home on the N train in New York, and I felt so empty and so alone because I was empty and alone, and I was drunk, and I was soon to be hungover. And I was exploring spirituality at that time. I was learning more about the Baha'i faith, which is a world religion calling for the oneness of humanity, God, and religion, the oneness of all. And I was learning about this faith, and I was starting to meditate. And I was like, how can I live the life that I envisioned for myself in an altered state? Because it wasn't just the alcohol and the drinking at the bar or at the club or whatever it is, the premiere. It was how I felt the next day. It was the money that it cost. It was all these different things. And I didn't really have much of an idea on the physical implications of what I was doing to my liver or whatever, just knew how it was feeling. And I could not answer the question how I could operate at peak state, which I was learning how to do, right? I was learning with all these amazing people, Tony Robbins and Richard Bandler, who was the founder of NLP, my mentor in London. Like, I really sought education. And the thing that I learned from all of them is that none of them drank. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. And none of my Baha'i friends drank either. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, but all my friends drank. So the minute that, not the minute, but the day I made the choice on July 21st, 2007, I mean, I remember the day, and I wasn't in a 12-step program. It was actually, it came from deep within. I probably would have ended up in a 12-step program, but it came deep within. And when I tell you, Carolina, the reason why I remember the day is because I lost all my friends when I stopped drinking, when I made that decision. But I found my life. I got my life back, and I started to create from a place of sobriety rather than a place of dependency to create. So that just changed everything.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And I love the way you describe it as really this intuitive choice that you made, like really listening to your emotions at that time around it and really kind of breaking through the societal messages and beliefs that we're supposed to have around that age to hear like a truer wisdom. And I often share that, I think that people who decide to ditch alcohol are often the most intuitive people on the planet, and you came to that pretty young, which is just remarkable, so like that intuition was just the voice that got you on the road to this awakening and this transformation. So tell us a little bit about what happened in that aftermath.
Well, thank you for acknowledging that. And for people that are listening, I've come to believe in my life that our lives are always speaking to us. And it usually starts as a whisper. And that's usually the gut, the intuition, whatever it is. And then the whisper gets louder, and then it turns into a shout. And then it turns into a bar brawl, and then it turns into a relationship that, cheating on a relationship, on a significant other. Then it turns into a catastrophe, whatever it is. But it always starts as a whisper. And so I just listened to the whisper. Look, I had watched my mom turn to alcohol after my brother died, right? So I kind of saw what was coming if I didn't listen to the whisper. But alcohol is very tantalizing. So it can be very much like, oh, whatever. Anyways, so what the aftermath was a bit of loneliness. I did have a bit of loneliness because literally my friend group was just like, we're done, and it wasn't mean. I wasn't playing by their rules. And to say that I don't drink, because what I found in the entertainment business in New York and LA is people say, oh, I don't drink. And then they invite you to go to the club on Saturday. And I was like, okay, so you you don't drink at the club? No, I drink on the weekends. I don't drink during the week. I was like, well, then you drink, honey. What are you talking about? So there became all of this weird stuff because I was still in the entertainment business, right? Going to all these agency functions and with agents and managers, and like the prerequisite is a vodka Red Bull to get going or a martini or whatever. And there I am, sober as Sally. And so it was difficult. It was difficult at first. I had to deal with myself. I had to learn how to deal with myself. But it started. I also started to realize that I was a lot happier, a lot healthier. My ability to connect from a meditative standpoint, because I really started learning these deep meditations, Carolina. I was like, oh, this is okay. Like, this is a path. I had never rendered myself an alcoholic or whatever, where I had to get sober. But I saw a new life in sobriety that I could really create from a place of I could really step into my own personal power, where alcohol before that had kind of dulled it a bit about where my personal power is. So now I got nothing going on about it. I get if people are at the beginning of that journey and they're like, what will my friends think of me? I mean, I was just with a 23-year-old. And I say he's 23 because he's young, and he kept inviting me to go out to a bar. He was at an internship here in Costa Rica. I'm like, I'm not going to a bar, dude. He's like, oh, but it's so much fun. And And I'm like, dude, I'm not going to, I'll go to a bar if I like the person that I'm going with and I know them for a decade, whatever. Like a bar can be fun. It's not the bar that's the issue. It's, it's just not sexy to me anymore. But it can be difficult at the beginning because peers and peer pressure it can be a big thing.
It's so true. And the things that you bring out about like the culture of certain environments, like in
Yeah.
that entertainment industry, it's like a status symbol, right? But like then you have this other world in spirituality and personal development where these movers and shakers aren't drinking, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like you get to choose which environment do you really want your role models to come from?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly right. And all my role models were sober. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go down that path because that seems curious. Now I feel like, I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm 36, but I feel like it's becoming more socially acceptable, or at least there's a clear dichotomy. When I was doing this in '06, or I guess '07, 15 years ago, oh my God, it was still weird. Now, luckily, I really don't give a crap about what people think, at least on the exterior. Like I'm able to have a very sort of obnoxious front. You can probably hear it in my voice for those that are listening. Like I'm playful and I'm joyful, but I'm also like, I suffer no fools, someone once said. So if someone wants to come at me, I'm just going to like, it's going to roll off me like Teflon. I know not everybody's built like that. But the peer pressure was real. I didn't feel, once I made the choice, I was really clear. And then once I saw my life open up, I mean, look, I never really made any money until I got sober. When I like literally there's July 2007, and then I ended up with $1 million in August. Do I attribute that to sobriety? I attribute that to a spiritual development. I was able to be clear and I was able to sell this advertising. Ford and Overstock.com had basically given me $1 million for my show. And then P&G gave me another $1 million. I was like, oh my God. And of course I couldn't help but think, is this because I don't drink alcohol anymore? Because that was literally the only thing that changed between July and August. And energetically, I have to tell you, I think it was. And I'm not saying people should get sober so that they can make $1 million. That's not the point. I was already on the path to achieving that. Life just got really clear for me. There was no distraction, whereas there was before. Yeah.
And I think symbolically, like there's this huge lesson, like when we let go of what no longer serves us and take a leap of faith, like the universe always provides miracles on the other side. And it can't do that when we're clinging to all this crap,
I was just going to do the clinging, because the thing with that, with what you just said, it's so much easier said than done, because you have to have your own self-awareness of whether your fists are clenched closed or palms up. Because if you're clenched closed, you're not going to be able to let life flow through. Whereas if your palms up and you're truly willing to let go and surrender, and surrender doesn't mean, this is what I got in my 12-step program, because I ended up, funny fact, getting into a 12-step program, but it's not the beverage program. It's actually the money program for Debtors Anonymous. Anyways, but what I learned in the 12-step program, the one that I ended up joining, was that if we can let go, we can actually let God. And when we surrender, we don't surrender for the sake of getting something. That's how I used to do it. I used to be like, okay, fine, I'll surrender, like so that I can get whatever, the date or get the business deal. No, you surrender because it's the flow of the universe. You surrender so that you can actually be empowered by higher consciousness. You surrender because it's much sexier to be in the eye of the hurricane than twisting around with the lightning in the clouds. That's why you surrender. You don't surrender to get something. So once I got that in my 12-step program, the money program, it just made life a lot easier, And so when you can surrender to the effects of what it'll be like if you stop drinking, or what it's like when you say I don't drink and you're at a party with people that are drinking, and then everyone looks at you weird. I'm like, what is wrong with these people? People look at me weird because I'm not drinking, and they suddenly feel subconsciously judged by me, and then they want me to deal with the fact that they feel subconsciously judged. I'm like, please, y'all got to stand back and be in your own lane. If you feel weird because I don't drink, that is your side of the street. Now, I'm present enough and have been around this long enough and been around some crazy characters that I can say that pretty easily. It's harder if you're a shyer person or if this is new for you. And, so I get it. I understand.
Yeah. And it's also such a great lesson to work through, like, because that underlying people pleasing or lack of boundaries
Ah,
or wanting to belong and fit in, that's there with alcohol or not, right? So it's like the cosmic lesson you were supposed to work through
oh,
either way.
that's great. That's a great awareness. I
Yeah.
guess, I've struggled with a lot fitting in and people pleasing, at least as far as I can see, not two things that I struggle with. However, I can see how it would be very hard that it's a people pleasing like angle. Like, I guess if you're yeah, I can see how that's true for a lot of people, because people pleasing, but it's a weird thing. I mean, I guess it's always a weird thing when we're looking at our shadows. And yeah, that's great. That's a great awareness for me. I'm going to take that and think about it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, Jake, so you go from this like very work hard, play hard, party lifestyle in the
Yeah.
entertainment industry, and now you're like all zenned out in Costa Rica. I'm sure it's not like a perfect life over there, but it's just so different what you created and kind of the intentionality before the center and what you offer
Mm.
participants with it, and just so much incredible spiritual and wellness mixed together with this alcohol-free, lifestyle that you've cultivated. So tell us the story of just like how you got this idea to do the Witherwall to do it, and then just a little bit about what the retreat center is all about so people can learn more about it. We want all of that.
Sure, all the juicy deets. So I will say that I stopped drinking when I was 21, which was the legal age to start drinking. I understand how ironic that is. But I stayed in the entertainment business through my late 20s. I had a music campus tour with some of the biggest names, some of the next it acts in music: J. Cole, Kanye, One Republic, all of this. I was on tour. People were drinking all around me. Did multiple TV shows, lived in Chicago, London. Like, it wasn't just like stop drinking, be spiritual. Like, it was a path and a journey, and filled with a lot of twists and turns. I mean, I lost everything when I was 27, and I had to go into my grandma's basement in Maine. Literally, my house got washed away in Hurricane Sandy. And I'm sharing all these details because, especially when my house got washed away and all my TV contracts ended and my friends stopped talking to me, like, I went through a dark night of the soul. And I thank God every day, honestly, Carolina, that I was sober at that point. Because had I been drinking at that point, I don't know if I would be here, because I have such an addictive personality, and that I would have, so there was real wisdom to getting sober early in my 20s, because life inevitably happens, as it does. And alcohol is an easy thing to soothe and to turn to. So after 2 years in the basement, I was supposed to be there only for a year, but 2 years, 5 failed businesses. The 6th one worked, which was a podcast. Amazingly, literally a podcast made me enough money to move out of grandma's basement and to Maui, where I became Oprah's neighbor, literally from grandma's basement to Oprah's neighbor. I mean, in one day. Talk about a quantum leap. And my house in Maui, it's a beautiful home up in Kula, Hawaii. For anyone who's been to the Haleakala volcano who's listening, I lived right on that volcano. And I see Oprah and Gail riding a little 4x4 thing. And I'm like, why is Oprah, what is Oprah, am I next to a billionaire? And so life just is funny for me that way. And I never hung out with Oprah. I'm not friends with Oprah. I'm just saying that the quantum leap of going from Maine to Maui, from grandma's basement to Oprah's neighbor, it was a jump for me. And that house was such a source of, first of all, I didn't belong there, meaning I literally had a 450 credit score after 2 years in grandma's basement. And here I am in this 4,000 square foot home. My life is just filled with miracles. But the house was paid for by an Airbnb cottage that I had in the backyard. And so I had these 4 bedrooms upstairs in this beautiful home. And I just started inviting people to Maui, Carolina. And what I started to realize over the 3 years that I was in Maui is hundreds of people visited my home. People want to feel at home in their transformation. And that's why I created Imiloa Institute. It was to create the experience of home and invite human beings to awaken their consciousness. Now, obviously, 100 million things had to go right in order for us to raise the money. And eventually I moved to Costa Rica, because that was going to be where the first flagship location was meant to be. And it turns out it was a great decision. And I had never been to a retreat before starting this retreat center. And I was not a vegan before I created a plant-based campus. I was dry when I created an alcohol-free campus, but I wasn't even a plant-based person. I was 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And thanks to schlepping across the Costa Rican jungle, building things, I didn't build the damn thing. I had 60 construction workers, let it be known, please. But I was still schlepping around with them. I had never done any of these things and it was all brand new. And part of it was I had the clarity and the endurance. I got to tell you, because I didn't drink. I had the wherewithal because I wasn't taxing my system like so many people do. So that's kind of how I got to Costa Rica. Does that get us to where you wanted to be? You wanted to get us to Costa Rica and Imiloa, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll go kind of deeper into like what transformation, the center really stands behind having for these participants. But I love that it's an alcohol-free campus. Like anyone can drink and have any kind of, responsibility for their own life and have it in all these different contexts. But I think it just gets really murky when we mix wellness with drinking. And I think that companies that do that are irresponsible. And I'll tell you,
better preach from your mouth to God's ears.
I'll just say personally that I went the year before I went alcohol free. I went on this really short retreat. It was maybe 3 or 4 nights. But it was on the weekend. So I didn't drink every day, but I did drink on the weekends. So like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday without drinking was pretty abnormal for me. And I'm so grateful. Like I probably wouldn't even sign up for the retreat if it was a retreat with alcohol involved, because I wanted that like space away from myself, to really deconstruct what was going on here. And I think that retreat really helped. I didn't go alcohol free the second I came back, but it really helped me learn how to sit with my emotions. Now, I sometimes think that that's the point of a retreat, is actually to get away from your computer, your everyday responsibilities, and really get in tune with yourself. And alcohol literally is numbing you every single time you drink it to be able to have that level of insight and intuition. And so, I'm personally someone who hosts retreats too, and I research different, centers and stuff like that. And it just boggles my mind where they're like plant-based and holistic and the yoga classes, and here are these cocktails. I'm like, what are the cocktails doing there? It doesn't make sense. So tell us about kind of the spirit that why you decided, obviously you're alcohol free yourself, but why did you decide to have this resort center also be alcohol free?
Well, I will answer your question, but again, I know I told you this before the show. I so appreciate what you're doing and standing for in the world, because for people who are feeling a little lonely, maybe you're thinking about making the decision. Maybe you just came back from a retreat that was alcohol free and you're like, why am I having a glass of wine every night? Like maybe that's not. They have your show as a way for people to be able to share insanely personal stories that get to resonate with them. So just thank you a million times for doing this show. I did not think it was a big deal that the campus was going to be alcohol free. And what's interesting, and this is the point I want to make, I really didn't think it was going to be a big deal. Second of all, I had people, so I wasn't entirely comfortable with it the first 2 years of Imiloa. And guess what happened? People told me how uncomfortable they were with it. When I stopped giving zero shits, all of a sudden, we don't get a ton of people that are asking what, hope I can say that on your podcast, Ms. Carolina. It's all of a sudden, now that I don't care, the sales team doesn't tell me that people are complaining. So it's a weird energetic thing that I haven't figured out. Anyways, I've held strong to it. We've not served alcohol on that campus. For me, it was very intuitive, just like you. I could not believe how many people would argue with me the first 2 years that I started coming up with great answers. I mean, I have a couple of quick stories. I had a wedding that wanted to be booked, a lovely Indian family that wanted to book a wedding. We were literally in the contract, about to sign the contract. This was the first or second year of Imiloa. And they said, well, what do you mean we can't drink? I said, well, it's in the contract, honey. Like you can't, there's an alcohol-free campus. And they're like, well, but my dad can't do a wedding without alcohol. I said, well, you better talk to daddy or don't book here. And, people, again, I understand most people listening do not talk like this to people. I do talk like this to people, and that's okay. I'm authentic. The key is to be authentic about whatever you're saying. But what I said to those people who were the lovely couple who were getting married is I said, listen, y'all got to, this literally stopped the whole wedding. And I was not going to allow alcohol in the thing. And they wanted so badly to get married at Imiloa. I said, listen, you've got to decide for yourself. are you planning a wedding or a lifelong marriage? Because if you're planning a wedding, you've got to go somewhere else. If you're planning a marriage, why the hell do you need alcohol? This is a 30-year venture, 40, 50, 60-year venture. What do you go and have that discussion between your families and then call me? 3 months later, they called and booked. They had the whole, now, you put people on a journey of discovery and all of a sudden things become clear. What you really value gets clear. I had another host who again was in the final, I don't know how this got to the final stages of booking, because I should have known it by the name of the retreat. You're going to die. The name of the retreat is Jin and Yin Yoga. And I thought maybe her name's Ginny, maybe I didn't think it was actually a yoga retreat to drink. And at the end, she's like, whoa, there's no alcohol. I said, no, there's not. She's like, hello, the name of the retreat is Gin and Yin. I said, hello, I didn't think anybody was doing a yoga retreat with gin in it. What's the matter with you? So anyways, people are on their own journey. I love having an alcohol-free campus. I love when it brings up stuff in people because A, they're probably not my core clients and I'm okay, or B, they're about to go through a massive or subtle transformation. Now, I just want to say this as a caveat, because there's nothing worse in the world than a Bible-thumping vegan or a Bible-thumping dry person. Okay. I have one of our best clients. She's renewed 4 times. She refers people in all the time. She's amazing. She's a world-class psychic. Okay. And she deals with grief, those who are grieving, in particular, mothers who have lost children. Hello. I have a very open heart and open wound for that because I saw what my mother dealt with. Right. And in the middle of her first retreat, she came up to me. She was so nervous. She was almost panting. She comes up to me. She's, Jake, we need to talk right now. I said, come in the office. What's going on? And she said, I just realized that a lot of my people have flasks. A lot of these grieving mothers who had often lost their children or husbands in the last 12 months who come to this person's retreat, they have flasks and they're drinking. And I just looked at her and I said, and she said, well, but you have like a no alcohol policy and I want to renew and I want to do right and integrity and blah, blah, blah. I said, whoa. What you're telling me is that these women have flasks, which means that they're hiding it. What you're telling me is that they are grieving mothers who have lost children. My mother lost the children. She turned to booze. I understand. And what you're telling me is they've invested whatever, 4 or 5 grand to come and start the journey of healing. Who am I to tell these people not to drink? And I'm a dry campus. But wait a minute. If I'm in the wellness, I'm not going to make someone feel more shameful and more bad about how they're showing up by suddenly going into rooms and sussing out the flasks and all of this. And she was just in tears. And obviously she's renewed every year and she doesn't host anywhere else now, because that's the type of humanity that you get to show up with when you have these type of boundaries. We have the boundaries, but I got 30 women with flasks and they're swigging a little in between whatever, but they're in flasks. Think about the shame that's associated with that. Do I want to be the perpetuator of more shame? No, I want them to be well. I want them to be on their healing journey. And so I share that story because it touches my heart, even with an audience that's not like yours, but especially with your audience. We get to be humble in our daily lives as sober people. This is not a Bible thumping situation where I'm good, you're bad, I'm good, whatever it is. This is not about that. This is about how do we all come together in our shared common humanity and act like human beings for each other.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And just like the depth of wisdom to be able to see, their hurt and how it's just manifests like that, that's so special. And I love how you say too, like the first step has kind of already been taken. They're already there. They signed up for the retreat. That's huge. Like it's almost like not a guarantee, but like they are working through this. They are taking that first step towards transformation. And that's why I think other retreats. So one time I went to one in Costa Rica as well. And I was a participant. And that's why sometimes it can feel so incongruous when the retreat center does offer or even celebrate alcohol with it, like, hey, we have these happy hours and we have these like drinks, is that there was a reason the women came there. There was a reason why they wanted to grow and stuff and transform, get away from their lives. And it's almost like it just gets stopped short when the
Yeah,
retreat is hosting that type of
totally.
numbing, you know?
Totally.
And also too, like I'm so like you, like so proud of being alcohol free. I like wear it as just this total confident, person. But like if I'm looking at, an Italy trip that I might want to go on, and there's all these alcohol things, I'm just kind of like, is this really gonna be, are they catering to me at all? Or is this
Mm.
just catering to someone else? That's not me. And so that might like, I'm sure people find safety and a space for themselves and relief in your campus that is alcohol free, whether they're alcohol free or not.
I think it also agitates people, Carolina. I'll be honest with you. We had the United Nations there, and they do these offsites where it's usually at airport hotels. But the organizer decided she was going to bring them to Imiloa, and they all came in from all over the country, all over the world, excuse me, for like a 4-day event. And I remember the organizer told me that they only realized as they were driving up the hill, because it's not a traditional retreat where you sign up. It's like a corporate gathering, and it's the United Nations. And they were all like started complaining on the ride up. What do you mean there's no meat? What do you mean there's no alcohol? It's like they came on this. So I got a bunch of angry UN people that came in there, some of them from England and from everywhere, West Africa, everywhere. By day 2, they were sold. By day 3, they renewed. It's like, you create, all we're doing and all you're doing, and you're creating the possibility. I'm not saying you have to be alcohol free, just like I'm not saying you need to live in a jungle. I'm just creating that possibility for you for 5 days to see what can happen. It's like, take your hands off the wheel a little bit and let someone else drive. Like you came to the Costa Rican jungle. Anyways, these are some of my favorite stories, and they all are around alcohol. And I never get to share these stories because what kind of podcast would cater to an audience like this? Fantastic. I love being able to tell these things.
So Jake, tell me if these aren't events, or maybe another teacher led retreat that someone else is leading at your campus, if you are really hosting that kind of retreat experience for people with the kind of ethos of your company and your mission and your brand, what is the transformation in your mind? Like, what is a week away from someone's life? What are you hoping that they get or gain, and what is kind of the experience driving towards?
I don't think I have to hope anymore. I mean, and my team doesn't have to hope. They see that the beginning of transformation happens in these people's faces. No matter what retreat, believe me, I've asked myself, I don't understand why we have 86% renewals. I don't understand why people keep coming back again and again and again and again, where they could spend their thousands of dollars anywhere. I didn't understand it for a long time. And then I realized what it is. Certainly, we create the experience of home. Yes, we have gourmet food. Yes, all of these things. The key pillar is that we feel most at home as human beings, I believe, in or surrounded by nature. And what Imiloa is doing, no matter what the programming is, no matter how good the spa treatment is, no matter, once you reconnect with nature, because we didn't cut a tree for the development. You are in the primary rainforest in Costa Rica, also overlooking the ocean, also on a river, also at a gorgeous waterfall, all at one time. It's an unspeakable experience in nature, and it's alcohol free. It's an unspeakable moment in nature. And it's these and each accommodation, we call it in our marketing or whatever, but it's true. It's storied accommodations. That means that everybody from every accommodation has a story, whether you're taking a tub in the sloth sanctuary, bathtub in the sloth sanctuary, or you're in a 200-year-old home from Bali overlooking the Pacific Ocean. Everybody has a story when they leave Imiloa. And that reconnection with nature as a pathway to discovering oneself is the transformation. I'm sorry, it's not the 80 plus teachers that we have coming to Imiloa. They are a byproduct of that. The nature, I really believe that is what's doing it. And it affects people in different ways. Look, I've had people go completely catatonic, unable to walk for 3 days because the nature's towering over them and they've never been out of San Diego. That's a true story. I've had very wealthy billionaires show up in their private plane requesting armored vehicles with female guards that bring them to Imiloa. And they think every noise is an animal coming to attack them. So nature heals in different ways, but I am certain that it's the nature that is doing the work. And we are just all Sherpas to that.
I can't wait to have this experience. Audience, I would not doubt that maybe in 2023, we'll all be doing a retreat in Costa Rica at
Hope
Imiloa.
so.
Tell us, we will have the website linked, all the good stuff, but tell us just for clarification points, like where in Costa Rica is it located?
Sure. So we're 3 kilometers north of Dominical and about a half hour south of Capo. So we're technically in the southwestern part of Costa Rica, which is on the road to the second most biodiverse area in the globe, which is the Osa Peninsula.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. And as we close out this interview, I'm just wanted to ask you, I love to get feedback from the mentors who have shaped you, the spiritual teachers who have, given you so much ability to look inside of yourself and deliver such wisdom and strength and confidence. Who do you think would you count as some of those kind of top wise teachers that you've had in your life, maybe from the spiritual realm or personal development realm? And if it's hard to think of, because I'm sure at this point, I'm 35, you're 36, we've had a lot over the years, maybe who's someone who's resonating with you right now?
Oh, I know my people, honey. That is one thing. I mean, because I keep my people close. I go through businesses, I go through high highs, low lows, but I keep my friends and mentors. So there's a couple of people. Yvette Noel Shore is one of the top publicists in the world. She's Beyonce's publicist, Mariah Carey, Adele, Prince. She was Prince's publicist when he died, Destiny's Child. She has imprinted on my heart. She's such a dear friend, and she's imprinted on my heart that kindness always wins. And I wasn't always a kind person, but she has consistently showed up that way for the past 15 years in my life. Susie Pearl, who's the best-selling author of The Art of Happiness, and she used to run a PR agency in London and used to run NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, for the founder of NLP, taught me how to merge business with spirituality, that I could actually be a spiritual being in a business boardroom. Frederick Dodson, he's less in my life now, but he's written so many books on the topic of parallel universes and levels of energy. And he was such a big part of my life in my 20s. There were so many people that have touched my life, and I've kind of gleaned. Someone once said to me, they said, when you speak, I can't tell what tradition you're speaking from because you've like blended all these things that you've learned. And isn't that an homage to the people that have come before us, right?
Yeah, we're like an amalgam of all those different things. And I'm like going to geek out on these mostly new people to check out and read their books. So thank you so much for offering that value to the community and to me. Jake, it's been such a pleasure to have you here today. Is there any other parting words you want to leave the audience with before we wrap up?
Not particularly. I think, the questions elicit the answers that are meant for people to hear. And so I'm just so grateful again for the quality of questions, how you show up and how you're serving for all those that are listening. And I'm good.
Well, you too, Jake. We're so cool that you were able to take these dreams and these intentions that you wanted to create, and materialize them literally in the most beautiful place probably in the world, for people to experience that connection with nature and connection with themselves, as they go through that experience. So thank you.
Thank you.